Hey everyone. So this is Madeline. I did my virtual symposium on the essay I wrote on COVID-19's effect on mass media. Here's my cover page. So a little bit why I chose this topic. It's very interesting to me, and I know to a lot of people. Um, and obviously it's current. We are amongst a pandemic right now, and media has changed a lot through that pandemic. We are staying home and getting our information from news and from social media. And we also saw ratings go up and views go up for um, news. And obviously, that would be because people are home and people are downloading social media apps and trying to get their information that way. And so we did see a large rise in ratings and downloads throughout the pandemic. So, a little bit first, before we get into it, of how I found my sources. So, I use Google sources or scholarly sources on Culver's library. And I also primarily used Google Scholar. Google Scholar was helpful in many ways, more so than Culver's library. They're both great, but I just personally liked Google Scholar a little bit more. And I also use CNN and Fox News for headlines, just to further get my point across. So, two articles that I really focused on when I was writing my essay, and I used all 8, but these two really had a lot of information, and they really went chronological from the start of the pandemic to when they were written, which they were both written in 2020. And I just really found that they helped me organize my information, and they were just really helpful. So the first one is kind of long, but it's a frame analysis of the language used by 8 U.S. media to describe the role of China and Chinese in spreading COVID-19 during late January to early June 2020. And that was in the Journal of Language and Linguistic Studies by A. Al-Sharani. And I probably butchered his last name, but tried my best. And COVID-19 and the Political Economy of Mass Hysteria by Philip Biggis. And those two, like I said, were just very helpful in the writing process and making this presentation. They were just very full of information, and I really just wanted to state that because they helped me a lot. So, to get into it, how the media handled COVID-19 and its negative effects. So, mass hysteria was created in the newsrooms mostly because newscasters and news stations were very unaware of the severity of the situation at first, and some were aware of the severity and just didn't know how to present that information across to the public in a way that wasn't creating mass hysteria. And people were worried about getting enough essential items like toilet paper and groceries, which led to overbuying. And as we saw in the toilet paper shortage of 2020, there was a lot of shortages. Newsrooms were saying buy essential items when you can because you don't know when you're going to be able to buy those items again. And excuse me. And we saw that essential workers in factories and stores were being laid off or having to go on COVID leave because of the pandemic. And there wasn't enough people to restock shelves and to make the products in the factories. And so newsrooms were very scared for the public and said, overbuy when you can. And this led obviously to shortages and people freaking out, as we saw all over the news. And there was also political biases in the media. And to further get into that, media political biases. This really, you can have your own opinion and whatever, and I am not trying to have any political bias whatsoever when I'm talking about this. I'm just trying to state facts and make it known, because I think it's very important to this topic of how COVID negatively affected media. And obviously, there was some political bias in some controversial newsrooms. The presidential election was going on at the time, and we just saw a rise in separation from political parties. And so Fox News publicly stated that they are Republican affiliated. And we saw that during COVID, a headline from April 1st, 2020 read, "After attacking Trump's coronavirus-related China ban travel as xenophobic, Dems and media have changed tune." And that was from Fox News 2020. So, and now analyzing this article headline, so Democrats were named Dems, referred to as Dems. And also, after reading the article, they were referred to very negatively. It was just a lot of kind of trash talk against Democrats. And also, a headline on the Ingram angle on Fox News, October 7th, 2021, so pretty recent, stated, so Ingram stated, "Biden has presided over a year of death, and the media is covering for him." In the article, Laura goes on to say that the media is throwing Biden a COVID lifeline. So this article, Laura Ingram on the Ingram angle, was presenting Joe Biden as a very negatively, in his presidential term, as he handled COVID. And I think that the media should shy away. I mean, they can present whatever they want, whatever information they want. But when presenting information about COVID, people really don't need to hear about political biases, because it may change how they think or how they view the news station. But I know a lot of newsrooms like Fox News and CNN aren't worried about presenting political biases, because that's how they get their ratings, from controversial headlines. It's all about ratings. However, people want accurate information on COVID, and I think when people want accurate, factual information, they shy away from Fox News and CNN now. Personally, from my experience and what I see with others, people just shy away from CNN and Fox News because of their controversial surroundings, how they put their headlines, and how they word their articles. Anyway, to get on with this presentation, so why was media reliable for information? So people were stuck in their homes, and there was no access to outside information. We weren't able to talk with our friends. Some weren't able to go to school. They were remote learning. People were working from homes. And there's uprising using of social media apps like Facebook and Twitter. And in the article of Mass Media Role in Public Health Communications in COVID-19 Pandemic by Aisha Anwar, it states that in this pandemic, false and misleading information spread unchecked by using different types of media. Social media groups, realizing this, started utilizing third-party fact checkers to limit the dissemination of the concocted knowledge. And this is by Anwar 2020. And so basically, to summarize, there were people spreading, obviously, untrue information about COVID on social media apps. And there was groups on Facebook and Twitter and Reddit that went over this information and made sure that they were true. And this led to a lot of backlash on some people and riots. However, it's important that people understand the difference between untrue information and factual information and how to get that information, because most people going into social media were younger people, but also older generations, because there was no way of getting information and they were more susceptible to getting this coronavirus, and they wanted to make sure that they were safe. So besides listening to the news, they had to go into social media apps to look for information, and sometimes there was untrue information and they believed that information, and that's very scary to spread untrue information about a pandemic like COVID. However, there were some positive effects of media, like the spread of social distancing and mask awareness through social media apps, and friends and family that were isolated in their homes connected over Zoom and Skype. And from that same article from before, the pivotal roles that the media can play in the current pandemic is promoting physical and psychological health measures and ensuring resilience in people belonging to different age groups and socioeconomic conditions, in WARS 2020. And we saw that people isolated in their homes felt very isolated and unconnected from the outside world. So with these apps like Zoom and Skype, people were able to stay connected with their friends and family. And so this was a nice touch. However, some people spent holidays over Zoom, and some still do. But these apps like Zoom and Skype made it very easy for people to connect. And also TikTok, as most of us know, was used for fun dances, skits, and songs. And younger people became more aware due to social media of how to prevent COVID and social distancing and mask wearing. And TikTok really helped shape how young people handled quarantine. A lot of people learned dances and songs, and some even shared facts about COVID, which was nice. And for the older generation, they mostly stayed with CNN and Fox News and their local news stations. But like I said, some went on to social media platforms to get their information. And most went on to Zoom to connect with family and friends. So, how did the media distribute information? From Anwar's article, experts and concerned authorities should rapidly employ ways to relay necessary and concerning information to the public as soon as possible using mass media, including print media, brochures, pamphlets, newspapers, television, internet, and social media apps. And that was Anwar 2020. And so we saw that social media apps like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter were posting flyers and social media ads stating wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart. And there were flyers in stores that the public was open to, like grocery stores, things like that, saying no entry unless you have a mask, stay 6 feet apart. There was arrows placed on the floors to try to encourage social distancing. And as we saw in some cases, people were removed from those stores if they did not comply. And ads and YouTube videos became more popular to preventing the spread of COVID. There was also commercials on television, and that contained CDC and World Health Organization's recommendations on how to prevent COVID. And so, what I covered during this presentation was how COVID-19 news coverage negatively affect the population. Why was the media such a reliable source for information during COVID? What were the positive effects of COVID-19 on mass media? And how did the media distribute information in such a timely manner? And I think we saw with media that it really just media changed over the past year with COVID. They implemented different ways on relying information, and for future reference, if there was ever to be a pandemic like this again, obviously this was the starting point. And so it'll be hopefully, cross our fingers that never happens, but hopefully, and newsrooms will present information a lot better than they handled COVID-19. So thank you for watching this presentation. If you have any questions, email me, message me on Canvas or my school email, which you can find on Canvas, I believe, or on Gmail. And so, again, thank you for listening and watching this presentation, and have a good day.